What if the darkest souls among us, those we fear, condemn, and cannot understand, weren't evil at all? Murderers, dictators, criminals. We speak their names in hushed tones, assign them labels like monster or inhuman, and push them to the outer edges of morality. But what if their darkness wasn't born from hatred or madness, but something deeper, something ancient, deliberate, even sacred? What if the most terrifying paths a soul can walk are not signs of failure, but pieces of a divine puzzle that we, from our limited human view, cannot yet comprehend? Before we begin to unravel such a profound and unsettling idea, we must return to the beginning, not just the beginning of life, but the beginning of existence as a soul. Because to understand the nature of a dark soul, we must understand what a soul is. Every soul, no matter how it manifests in this world, begins the same way, as a spark of the divine, pure, eternal, boundless, and each soul has a blueprint. Before it takes human form, before it experiences breath, pain, joy, or choice, it enters into a sacred agreement. This pre-birth planning, often called a soul contract, is not random. It is not a roulette wheel of fate or a cruel cosmic joke. It is intentional. The soul sits with its guides, beings of immense wisdom, sometimes referred to as spirit elders, ascended masters, or higher selves, and together they explore possibilities, examine past lifetimes, review unfinished lessons, and design the next journey. This blueprint outlines not only the beautiful moments of life, love, growth, connection, but also the most painful, loss, betrayal, trauma, hardship, and sometimes, for reasons that challenge everything we believe, a soul may choose a path of darkness, not to punish others, not to indulge cruelty, but to serve a purpose so vast, so layered, that only from a higher realm can it be fully understood. Why would any soul choose such a path? To answer that, we must first let go of our limited human understanding of morality. From the soul's perspective, there is no good or evil in the way we define it. There is only experience, growth, evolution. A soul is not bound by human emotion when it makes these choices. It is not driven by fear or ego. It sees time as infinite, suffering as temporary, and earth as a school. Imagine a soul that has lived lifetimes filled with compassion and kindness. It has served, healed, sacrificed. It has played the hero. Eventually, that soul may desire contrast. It may ask, what lies on the other side of light? What can I learn from power, from fear, from being the one who causes the pain rather than the one who heals it? This is not a desire rooted in malice, but in curiosity and a deep yearning to understand the full spectrum of existence. Contrast is essential to the soul's journey. Without darkness, there is no true appreciation of light. Without fear, love has no depth. Without cruelty, compassion cannot rise. And so, in the vast web of existence, some souls choose to play the role of the shadow. These choices are not made recklessly. They are made with full awareness of the karmic weight they carry. Because karma, the great cosmic law of cause and effect, is inescapable. Every action a soul takes, in any life, echoes through eternity. The soul understands this. It accepts the consequences, knowing that every wound it inflicts will someday become its own, that every ounce of power it abuses will be balanced by lifetimes of humility and powerlessness. Yet, still, some choose the dark. Not all dark paths are created equal. Some are chosen as personal challenges. Others, remarkably, are chosen as acts of service. Think about it. The villains of history, the tyrants, warlords, and destroyers, have shaped our world as much as the saints. Their cruelty sparked resistance. Their control provoked revolution. Their oppression gave birth to heroes. These roles, though reviled, served as catalysts. They awoke something in humanity, a deeper desire for justice, freedom, unity. Could it be that some souls agreed to wear the mask of evil, not because they are evil, but because they knew someone had to? That someone had to trigger the awakening? Of course, this path is dangerous. The soul who chooses to step into darkness walks a razor's edge. The risk is immense. Once within the illusion of separation, of ego, of control, the soul can forget. It can become entangled in its role, seduced by the very power it sought to explore. What began as a lesson, or even a noble mission, can turn into a trap, a prison of its own making. We see this in the way some souls seem to return lifetime after lifetime as destroyers. Their names change, their faces change, but the patterns remain. They are caught in a karmic loop, replaying the same wounds, the same hunger for control, unable or unwilling to break free. These souls are not damned, but they are lost. And yet, no matter how deep they fall, the truth remains. Every soul can choose again. Free will never dies. Redemption is never beyond reach. Even the darkest soul, the most corrupted being, can at some point awaken to its suffering. It may take centuries. It may take lifetimes filled with pain. But eventually, the soul begins to remember. It remembers that it is not the role it played. It is not the pain it caused. It is not the shadow it once embraced. It is divine. It is light, and it can return. This awakening is not easy. To walk the path back from darkness requires courage beyond measure. It requires the soul to feel everything it once inflicted, to surrender every illusion, to face its own reflection and say, I was lost, but I choose now to return to love. When we begin to view souls from this lens, not as good or bad, but as eternal beings on a sacred journey, everything changes. We begin to see the world not as a battle between angels and demons, but as a stage upon which growth unfolds in the most unexpected ways. This is not to excuse cruelty. It is not to glorify suffering. It is not to suggest that we should welcome harm or turn a blind eye to injustice. Quite the opposite. When we understand the deeper dance of the soul, we realize just how vital our roles are. Those who resist darkness, those who protect the vulnerable, those who rise in the face of oppression. They are responding to the very call that a dark soul's actions may have unintentionally sent out. Both roles matter. The shadow and the light are not enemies. They are partners in an ancient, divine rhythm. And so, when we look at the so-called monsters of history, let us ask not only what they did, but why. Let us wonder what role their soul chose, and what lessons we were meant to learn. Let us not forget that even those who seem lost beyond saving carry within them the same spark of the divine that lives in us all. Because in the end, no soul is truly dark. Darkness is a veil, a cloak, a phase. It is a passage, not a destination. The soul, by its very nature, is light. It may travel through lifetimes of shadow. It may cause pain, wield fear, and build empires on suffering. But eventually, inevitably, it will awaken. It will remember who it is, and it will return. So the next time you wonder why there is evil in the world, consider this. Perhaps some souls choose to fall so that others can rise. Perhaps the chaos is not proof of divine absence, but divine design. Perhaps the journey through darkness is not the opposite of spiritual evolution, but part of it. And perhaps, just perhaps, the souls we fear the most are the ones teaching us what love truly means. Every soul walks its own mysterious path, some wrapped in light, others swallowed in shadow. But even the darkest of roads has a purpose. Darkness doesn't exist to punish. It exists to teach, to awaken, to reveal the truth beneath the illusion. It's in the very depth of suffering, confusion, and chaos that the soul begins to glimpse its own power, the power to choose differently. When a soul descends into darkness, it's not just wandering, it's walking through the very world it once helped to create. The soul begins to face reflections of its own energy, violence it once inflicted, sorrow it once ignored, power it once abused. These aren't just unfortunate coincidences. They're echoes, energetic mirrors that call the soul to understand itself on a deeper level. But the longer a soul dwells in darkness, the harder it becomes to find the light again. The weight of unhealed wounds, old fears, and karmic loops can pull a soul into a kind of spiritual amnesia. Some souls resist change because they are terrified of facing the pain they've caused or the truth of who they've become. Others grasp onto power like it's the only lifeline left, believing that without control, they will disappear, dissolve into nothing. These souls are not inherently evil. They're wounded, lost, disconnected from the memory of their true nature. In rare cases, a soul becomes so overwhelmed, so locked into destructive cycles, that it loses the ability to evolve. When that happens, something extraordinary may occur. The original soul steps aside, and a walk-in takes its place. A walk-in is a highly evolved soul that enters the body after a major turning point, often after a near-death experience, intense trauma, or a moment of complete surrender. The new soul brings a radically different energy. It may have a different mission, values, or emotional frequency. That's why some people seem to change overnight. A criminal becomes a monk. A tyrant begins preaching peace. Someone lost in despair suddenly finds purpose. These shifts often baffle those around them, but on a soul level, it's a divine intervention. Still, whether the soul transforms from within or is replaced by another consciousness, the goal is always the same: evolution, growth, healing. Even the soul that plunges into the deepest shadow is being called, urgently, compassionately, back toward the light. Imagine a soul who, in a previous life, lived as a warrior, one who took many lives and carried the belief that violence was necessary for survival. That same soul might reincarnate into a life filled with chaos and emotional pain. It might be born into a household where violence is normalized. It might feel rage boiling beneath the surface and not understand why. The patterns repeat, not because fate is cruel, but because the soul is being given another chance to make a new choice, to break free from the past. But not all souls are ready to let go. Some double down on destruction, reacting to karmic challenges with denial, blame, or fear. These are the souls who may become ruthless rulers, corrupt leaders, or abusers, repeating lifetimes filled with control, manipulation, or greed. They are not being punished. They are being given endless chances to learn. And karma, contrary to how it's often portrayed, is not a system of retribution. It is a system of balance and awareness. Karma holds up a mirror and whispers, "See what you've become. See what you've chosen. Now, what will you choose next?" Some souls have returned to Earth time and time again, playing out the same story in different costumes. You can feel it in history, the energy of oppression, power hunger, or cruelty that shows up in different figures across the ages. These souls are not cursed. They are simply stuck, hypnotized by their own narratives. Some carry the karma not only of themselves, but of entire family lines or nations. A dictator might reincarnate within a bloodline riddled with war and dominance. A violent soul may be born in a war-torn region, where conflict is already raging. The environment then reinforces what the soul already believes about life, that it is a battlefield, that power is the only safety. But change is always possible. The turning point comes when a soul experiences something that breaks the cycle, something that jolts it awake. Sometimes, it's extreme suffering. A soul might be brought to its knees through loss, illness, betrayal, or imprisonment. Other times, it's a spiritual revelation, a vision, a dream, or a profound moment of stillness. There are also times when a soul meets another soul who carries light so clearly that it acts as a catalyst for transformation. A teacher, a lover, even an enemy. And then, in an instant, the soul remembers, "I can choose differently." But let's not pretend awakening is easy. For a soul that has been lost in darkness, the journey back to light is often painful. It means facing everything it once ran from: shame, grief, remorse, and the crushing realization of what it has caused. That's why some choose not to awaken. They would rather stay asleep, numbed by distraction, anger, or power. These souls continue to reincarnate into similar circumstances, repeating the same lessons until they finally break the loop. Still, destiny is not fixed. A soul born with the potential to be a tyrant can rewrite its story. It can walk away from power, seek forgiveness, and become a force for good. Just as a soul born into suffering can rise to be a healer, a leader, or a revolutionary. History is filled with these transformations. People who faced unthinkable darkness and chose to shine instead. The difference between a trapped soul and a liberated one is simple: awareness. An unconscious soul is like a leaf caught in a storm, tossed by karma, trauma, and external forces. But a conscious soul becomes a navigator. It steers with purpose. It learns from the winds rather than being battered by them. And when this awareness becomes deep and lasting, it transforms not only the soul's current life, but all its future lives. Death, too, is not an end but a doorway. When a soul leaves the body, it doesn't vanish. It steps into another dimension. The afterlife is not one place, but many, layered and shaped by the soul's own energy and level of consciousness. One of the first things that happens is a life review, not a judgment, but a moment of absolute clarity. The soul sees every action it ever took and feels its impact, not just from its own perspective, but through the hearts of those it touched. A murderer feels the terror of their victims. A tyrant feels the weight of every suffering they caused. A loving soul feels the joy it gave others. It's not a punishment. It's a remembering. For souls who lived with love and integrity, the life review is peaceful, even joyful. But for those consumed by darkness, it can be overwhelming. Some souls, unable to accept what they see, resist the process. They become stuck, wandering as lost spirits or lingering in the lower astral realms. These places are not hells created to torture souls. They are reflections of the soul's own state, chaotic, dark, and heavy. A soul filled with hatred or guilt finds itself in a realm that mirrors those emotions. But even these realms are not forever. When a soul finally turns inward, when it surrenders, asks for help, and chooses to learn, it begins to rise again. There are guides, beings of light, and higher energies always waiting to assist, never forcing but always offering. The journey back to the light begins the moment the soul says, "I want to understand." And that's the beautiful truth at the heart of all this. No soul is beyond redemption. No matter how far one has fallen, no matter how many lifetimes have been spent in pain, there is always a way back. One honest choice, one moment of awareness, one breath of willingness is enough to shift the entire trajectory of a soul's journey. So wherever you are in your own path, whether you're lost in shadow or dancing in the light, remember, your choices matter. Your awareness is powerful. And the soul, no matter how burdened, always has the ability to heal, to grow, and to return home. Because even the darkest night eventually gives way to dawn, and light is always waiting, just one choice away.